Felix Bautista, the GMs are calling. They want him. Will Mike Elias deal him? Is the time almost right? Hello, everybody. I'm Jon Leiberman. This is Orioles Digest. It's almost as if a whole bunch of GMs woke up this morning and said, wait a second, Felix Bautista could solve our closer problems. Lots of headlines with different teams being talked about, including the Dodgers, including the Phillies, actually calling Mike Elias about Felix's availability. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to get into who Jim Bowden from the New York Times, The Athletic, who he says the Orioles will be shopping around if they are sellers at the deadline. We're going to get to that. You all know I don't think yet. I'm not willing to yet concede that the Orioles are sellers. And I know that you're going to be in the comments and yell at me and all the things, but the Birds are only 8 back in the wild card, and they're starting to get healthy, and hopefully they continue to get healthier as the season goes along. Proof point last night, the Birds win 10-1. Jordan Westburg hits his second homer in 2 games. I'm going to show you the impact just in 2 games that Ced coming back and Westy has coming back had on the team. And it's not simply their bat, it's their presence and their presence in the lineup. Again, like, subscribe, do all the things. This is Orioles Digest. We're nearing 2,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there. I'd love your help to get there. We'd all love for you to follow on this journey because I think it could get fun. It's been rough, but I think it could get fun. Sports Illustrated, this headline. Proposed Orioles trade sends flame-throwing all-star closer to the Dodgers. The Birds could have one of the best trade pieces at the deadline if they end up selling their former all-star closer. I'm going to get into the details of the deal that Sports Illustrated talks about in a second. Then we have Jim Bowden from the New York Times and The Athletic, 20 things I'm hearing and watching for on MLB trade deadline with 50 days to go. One is what Jim says are phone calls from the Phillies to the Orioles inquiring about Felix. So we will get to that as well. And we'll also get to number 1 on Jim's list has to do with the Birds. So we're going to get to all of it. We have a little bit of time. Let's start with Felix Bautista, and let's start with what Sports Illustrated is saying could be the deal for the Orioles to unload at the deadline. Felix Bautista, as you know, 2 years of team control, about a $2 million contract to the Dodgers. Let's take a quick graphic so I can show you, first of all, Felix's numbers this year. You know, he's got the 3.32 ERA in 22 games. Really had one bad stretch in May. And otherwise, Felix Bautista has almost been the Felix Bautista of the past. I mean, and this is why, you know, teams are inquiring about him. Because here's the thing. You know, Bautista, as you know, a 3.32 ERA, but he had that poor stretch back in May. And since that stretch, he has a 1.29 ERA. 1.29. That's hard to look away from. So what Sports Illustrated is talking about here is a trade that would involve Alex Freeland from the Dodgers, who's an infielder, and a right-handed pitcher named Patrick Copen. Freeland would be the kind of the blue chip in the deal, if you will. He's a fringe top 50. Actually, Freeland is a number 4 prospect, and he's a former 3rd-round pick. He can play either left side infield spot, 2020 potential at the plate. You see the numbers there, 7 homers and 12 stolen bases. And then the other piece to this puzzle would be the right-handed pitcher, Patrick Copen. He is the fringe kind of top 50 prospect. He would come out of the bullpen, and so this is what we're talking about. Look, I don't think it's going to happen. The Orioles don't need any left side infielders at all. So I don't think this deal is going to happen, but it's intriguing for the Dodgers. Now, what I do want to talk about, though, is the 20 things that Jim Bowden is hearing and watching for and studying. And one of them is, and this is a tweet from Jim just today, if the Orioles don't get back in the race, Felix Bautista could be the Phillies' best option to take over the ninth. And there have been phone calls to that effect. So, again, Felix's name being tossed around. And I want to get to this because this is super interesting from Jim's column. This is number 1. And he says the Orioles and the Diamondbacks will be the headliners of the trade deadline if they decide to be sellers, because the Birds could dangle Zach and Charlie Morton, who's been much better lately, and Sagano and Ced and Ryan O'Hearn, who's probably going to be an all-star, among others. I mean, because all 5 of those guys are free agents. So I understand the thinking here, but I only think this happens if the Birds fall 10-plus games out of the wild card and it's really, truly over. At that point, you strongly have to consider, obviously, getting something for these guys who are going to become free agents, and obviously they're going to go most likely as rentals to teams in the race, things like that. But the reason why I am a little bit more bullish on the Orioles is with Seti and Jordan coming back, 4 hits and 4 RBIs between them on Tuesday. Westy hit a 3-run dinger last night. So he has 2 home runs in his 2 games back. And it actually could start to get interesting. I mean, you have Mateo and Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sanchez on the mend and hopefully on the way back in the next week to 10 days or so, maybe 2 weeks. Obviously, Mountcastle is going to be a little bit longer. Mounty's going to be out 2 to 3 months. But at the very least, it is heartening that the Orioles can score 10 runs. We didn't know they could even score 10 runs, but most runs they've scored since opening day. It's heartening that they scored 10 against a very, very good Detroit Tigers team with a nearly healthy lineup. So, you say to yourself, you have a healthy lineup, you get a couple more guys, you get a couple more arms back. Can the Orioles actually become competitive for the final wild card spot? I still believe they can. I know I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but like all Orioles fans, you have to hold on to some semblance of hope. What do you think? You think the Orioles should seriously consider unloading Felix Bautista? Love to know what you think. Tell me in the comments. Orioles Digest. I'm Jon Leiberman.